I'm sure, was everybody here last night?
Yes.
Okay, so we all know Kathy. You know, I think one thing I didn't hear about yesterday, of course, she's a two-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee and one of our most respected heroines. And what I didn't hear last night was there's a little story about some prison time and some planting rows of corn on top of missile silos. So maybe Kathy would like to fill you in on that. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started right away and welcome Kathy Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes, let's start with the ex-con text that beat. Snowballs would fly in hell before this flower would ever be given a Nobel Prize. And I think maybe I could say that when Voices in the Wilderness, the sort of predecessor group to Voices for Creative Nonviolence, was organizing what ended up being 70 delegations to go over to Iraq, we were breaking the law every time we went. And I always felt, because we were bringing medicines to children and families in Iraq, and that was completely against the economic sanctions imposed on Iraq by the United States, pushing the UN to make these comprehensive sanctions. But I always felt that the peace movement kind of circled wagons around us and protected us. We got every award you could imagine, but it was really a way of the peace movement saying, don't go after these people. And then I think Mairead Maguire and the AFSC decided to do the same, and so that's why those nominations happened. But I think I'm always appreciative. People here in Texas were very, very supportive of that effort in many, many ways. So I guess maybe I would like to tell you that I don't know why I don't go out and do it more often, but when I was much younger, I planted corn on top of nuclear missile silos, and that gave me a year in maximum security prison. I had taught in Catholic girls' high schools long enough before that I was kind of exceptionally well prepared to go to a maximum security prison. And I learned a lot, and it gave me more backbone in a way that's a little bit difficult to describe. But one of the things I learned a lot about was the particular war against the poor that was being and continues to be waged in this country. Some of us who are older would remember the idealism that infused the war on poverty. You know, Michael Harrington and the other American, I see heads nodding. And we really thought there would be a war on poverty, and there still could be. But instead, the peace dividend disappeared quickly, and we've had a war against the poor. And where do you find out who are the people who are most bearing the brunt of that war? Well, right inside of a federal, state, or county jail or prison. I think that when we think about what to do for an ailing planet, I sometimes think, well, what would I wish that the people who have their hands on the levers of great power and exercise great authority, what do I wish they would do? I wish they would go to the poorest neighborhoods, get down on their knees and kiss the ground. I wish the Pope. I wish the President, any one of the presidents gathering here. I wish the people who are in the salons of major corporations would go to the people who are most bearing the brunt of our wars, including the war on poverty, and do just what your Mennonite minister did during the lamentation prayer service here yesterday. Say, we're sorry. And she burst into tears. That would help to orient us. So, okay, maybe they're not going to do it anytime real soon, but we can do it. And we should. One of the ways to help an ailing planet is to always be sure that we make the most impoverished amongst us our #1 priority. However you find the way to do it, and I know I'm talking to the choir here, but often I find, it's go to the house of hospitality, go to the people who've rolled up their sleeves and are, trying to have a soup kitchen and trying to make sure people who've just gotten out of prison are going to get a place to stay and make sure that the kids don't fall through the cracks and do the elder care. And then a lot of times you find that in that space, that's where you meet, oh, glory be, the people that are the war tax refusers. But on the other hand, I'll tell you, I haven't paid a dime of income tax since 1980. I can't and I won't. I've been written off as uncollectible. So the IRS is my spiritual director. Because you can't own anything. they'll take it. But I'm quite happy just to go beneath the radar in terms of income. There's nothing they can take except maybe my contact lenses, and it's been a good way to live. But you have to do it within community, and you have to know. You have to know you're never, ever, ever going to pay in order to have any success in doing it. But I hold that out just as a descriptive measure for what is found when you're kind of in sync with people that have decided to make the most impoverished people in our world their number one priority. It makes me very hopeful. In the Midwest, there was a gathering of the Catholic worker houses, these houses of hospitality, and about 250 people came, and 70% of them were under 30 years of age. So when you ask, well, where are the young people? Well, we've got Rosie here to tell us about that. But I find often that in some of the most difficult and most demanding circumstances, that's where you'll find some of the people with hearts open to the world who are quite young, working for a better world. So what's ailing our planet? Well, certainly there are the people who don't stand a chance because they're impoverished if, in fact, the war against Mother Earth, the war against the planet, continues unabated. A war against the planet. It's an insidious, hideous, horrific warfare. I think the line that sort of rolls off my tongue these days, but I know I need to slow down and stop and really take stock of it, is that the greatest terror that we all face is the terror of what we're doing to our own environment. And it's accelerating. Things are bad and getting worse. And people like Bill McKibben, in the most recent article that he posted in the, in the most recent article that he wrote, it's in the New York Review of Books. It's called Some Like It Hot. Well, you know, what's being described, you'd almost see it in Margaret Atwood's dystopian novels about the future, and it's coming our way pretty quickly. Now, something I've observed, people love their grandchildren. Notice that? Well, if we love the grandchildren, we better make sure that we recognize what is being handed off to them. And, you know, sometimes it's almost like we're on a train, the train is headed over an abyss, and we're expected to be in the observation deck saying, oh, don't stop the train, we like the scenery. Cuckoo, nuts. We have to stop that train. And so how do we do that? I think, for me, there are three prescriptive things. One I've already mentioned, make the most impoverished our number one priority, believe that nonviolence can change the world. And then this third one, I don't want to sound shrill, so gong me if it does sound that way, but never let inconvenience get in the way of acting in accord with your deepest values. I'll just say that one more time. Never let inconvenience get in the way of acting in accord with your deepest values. If your deepest values are not to kill other people, never let inconvenience get in the way of your chance to refrain from killing other people, to refuse to kill other people. Now, I know the vortex refusal it's a non-starter for most people, let's admit that. But there are other ways that we can withdraw our consent and that we can say, no, we will not be part of this. And I think in regard to finding actions commensurate to the crimes being committed, we should be filling the jails. Fill the jails. There's Ann Wright coming in, just have time for that. And you know, fill the jails. And in terms of, you know, how it is that we can organize ourselves to find actions that are commensurate to the crimes being committed, we have to, I believe, find actions that will kind of turn the heads of people who are sort of looking straight ahead and so saturated with a media that emphasizes sports and entertainment that it's very hard for them to look up. And then I think we have to ask ourselves, okay, how complicit am I being with that media that so emphasizes sports and entertainment? And I'm going to go back again to this thing I've observed, that grandparents love their grandchildren. But then there is that matter of the parents being told that if you love your children, you will take your children to every single soccer game that's going, you will have your child so caught up with sports and entertainment on the little kid level that you won't have time to exercise your adult responsibilities on this planet. And that's part of what happens. People get so caught up in driving to this sporting event and being part of this play date event that there's no time left. I mean, as I watched my sisters raising their children, I thought I'd have a cardiac arrest if I tried to do what my sisters did. And they lived in the suburbs, and they had to do an awful lot of driving, and their calendars were filled, just chock-a-block filled, with all of the sporting events, just to keep each kid up through the routines. So I question that. I think we have to start saying, how do I exercise my adult responsibility on this planet to help get in the way of the war against the poor, the most impoverished, and the war against the planet. Now, what's coming? What's coming our way? I'll just go back to Bill McKibben, who writes about catastrophic events that will cause worldwide mass migrations of desperate people. He talks about crop failures and drought that will cause famines in places all around the world. And maybe even here in Texas, there's not famine, but a pretty serious drought coming your way. He talks about the pandemic diseases that could break out. And then it begins to be something that would require tremendous resource, all hands on deck, get the scientists, get the ingenuity, get the money. What's the problem? The elephant in the room, the big manila in the room is that the military takes all. Eisenhower warned us. 3 days before he left office, he presided over the buildup of the largest arsenal in world history. But Eisenhower said, be wary of the unwarranted influence of the military-industrial complex. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And I think average, ordinary people are scared. They don't have income that's going to help them live the way they believe they need to live. And they're scared. You mess with the military, we'll lose our jobs. The military-industrial complex has been very smart in making sure that in every congressional district, practically, there is some kind of a huge military base or some kind of huge corporation that's military, and people don't want to lose their jobs. Well, one of our jobs is to make sure people know that the military is not productive of and creative of jobs. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Amherst study showed 4 years ago that you take any chunk of money out of the military, put it into making things that are good for people, and we know what those things are: mass transit systems, retrofit the housing stock in this country, elder care, child care, do things that are good for people that'll produce 4,000 more jobs than what the military can offer you. So we have to battle against that erroneous supposition that if we take away from the military, we automatically lose jobs. That's simply not true. The other reality is the security industrial complex. Eisenhower didn't talk about that one, but now we have to. And what's the security industrial complex? Another big controller of jobs is the criminal justice system in this country. Every single university graduates a new crop of lawyers. How do you keep all those lawyers employed? Criminals. How do you have all those criminals? War on drugs. And it's such an insidious coherence. You've got the people that are building the prisons, the people working in the prisons, the judges, the wardens, the lawyers, all profiting from the security industrial complex. Add in, when I go over to Afghanistan, and Anna will back me up on this, 3/4 of, we feel like we're out of uniform. 3/4 of the plane are security contractors. And they all have the same haircut and the same kind of muscle structure and the same tattoos and the same outfit. And I get so shy. I mean, I'm sort of preacher naturally expert. I don't say a word. I'm absolutely overwhelmed. The security industrial complex includes the people who are security contractors making $129,000 a year, the first $80,000 of it tax-free. Who can turn that down if you're a young kid wanting to get off the farm and you've been in the military and now you can't do that any longer? So this security industrial complex plus the military industrial complex plus all of the think tanks and public relations people who put a vice-like grip on education in this country managed to convince people, to persuade people that there's no other way. So part of our job, what power we have, is in the power of persuasion. And so to be persuasive by our words and by our actions. And so again, gong me, I don't mean to be so shrill that I got the microphone because I came earlier and to live more, well, I'll just say, the nuns on the bus came through here the other day. I love the nuns on the bus. I'd asked one of the nuns in Iowa, how did you ever keep all of us quiet? 56 of us in a classroom and you could hear a pencil drop. And she said, well, I was worried when I was a young teacher myself as a young nun how to do it. And the older nun told me, never call attention to behavior you don't want to see, and always call attention to behavior you do want to see. Mm-hmm. Well, the behavior of these nuns that has touched me deeply is they never showed the slightest interest in accumulating personal wealth. Immigrant Catholic kids on the southwest side of Chicago, our role models were the nuns. They didn't own anything, nothing. They weren't paid anything, nothing. And I don't recommend that, penury be the lot of people, but I think one of the things we can do is to kind of get back into the 60s model of celebrating living simply, sharing resources, preferring service to dominance. The 60s came out of the 50s somehow. We need the pendulum to swing again. And don't underestimate how much your grandchildren, who know how much you love them, look up to you. Don't underestimate how much your peers at Colorado University or wherever it is that you're working, studying, teaching, living, people are looking at you and wondering what makes that person tick. And if part of what makes you tick is being odd, profoundly odd, and countercultural in our society, that's a good thing. That's one of my prescriptions. I think I do odd pretty well. But we're 6% of the world's population. And the remaining 94% of the world's population, there are many millions of people who will just be run over by the coming war against the planet that's continuing and by the ways in which our wealth keeps on going upward to that elusive 1%. And so to be in solidarity, hand holding hand, shoulder to shoulder with the neediest people in our neighborhoods, in our world, and to move forward believing, really believing that nonviolence, putting the guns away, really can change the world. Put those guns away. Thank you.